Mark, fantastic to have you on. How are you this fine day?
Amazing, great, lovely to see a bit of sunshine, and just kind of in the run up to One Piece, so it's all kind of kicking off all over the place in an incredible, crazy way. And I just come back from Slovenia, so things are good.
On another job already? You've moved on to the next
No,
show?
no, man, no. Just walking in the hills and the mountains in a camper van with the family, driving from Austria through the Alps there, making fires, cooking chicken on fires,
Oh,
hiking,
oh,
going to freezing cold rivers and jumping in and kind of waking up and um, yeah, just a big
that's
active holiday.
that sounds. I mean, unsurprisingly, as a director, you've painted a wonderful visual picture of your holiday there. So thank you. And One Piece. Hey, let's start with One Piece. So, I mean, you have directed some big shows, but in terms of global popularity, and I am going to be completely transparent, I'm saying this having just done my research because One Piece I had not heard of until I did my research. But oh boy, this is one of the biggest IPs on the planet, isn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's. I mean, look, the Marvel Studios work that I've done is pretty big. There's a
Mm.
pretty, loyal fan base to them. The Witcher, you know, was probably even more loyal than the Marvel shows, but this is on a different level. And I didn't know about that when I kind of was given the scripts to read and went to LA to go and talk to them about it. I just didn't really know about it. I mean, I knew it existed. I'd heard of One Piece and I knew that the anime was popular. And but on this scale, this is on a different level. I don't know whether you've seen any of the footage that's come out of the last night. They did a big event on Santa Monica Beach.
Yeah, on the
Did
pier
you
there.
see any
Yeah,
of that stuff?
yeah, I did. It
I
looks
mean,
incredible.
for me, that's incredibly exciting because
Mm.
when you come from theatre, you have such a direct contact with the audience and the people who come in and see your shows that you can calibrate what the audience is feeling from the reaction that you're getting back. And in film, obviously, you know, it goes out and you kind of think, well, there's a couple of reviews, you get that, but you don't get that sort of sense of connection in the same way that you do with theatre. So when I saw that on the beach, I just, I had a message from Kiki Iñaki, who plays Luffy, who's out there with Emily and Jacob and Matt Owens, who's the showrunner, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's insane, but it is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely an audience for One Piece. I'm just going to reel off some stats. So the original manga created by Ichiro Oda, the best-selling manga on the planet. The One Piece anime series, the animated series, was the most watched TV show in the world in 2022, beating out Stranger Things. This is a big deal.
That I didn't know. Oh my God, I can feel my bum clenching already. Um, uh, yeah, and what has been so interesting for me, Alex, is that you know we did a big global casting session for this over many months. I don't know, 7, 9 months or something like. On my day one of production, we agreed that this show will stand or fall on the casting of it. Really,
Hmm.
you've got to get the right people for the cast. So we said, let's just start early, get in there early, and really trawl. And what was really interesting to me, is that there were so many actors that would come into the auditions and say, "You have no idea what this means to me. Um, it's seen me through some really dark times," and so it's not just a great adventure with epic landscapes and huge action sequences and crazy, fantastical, wild, whimsical, goofy characters, which it is
Hmm.
too. But it also is about something, and it means something to people. And they would say that it's hopefulness, its sense of loyalty to friendships, its sense of believing in yourself, believing in your dreams, believe in your dreams, man, you know, and support your friends in what they want to be and let them be more of who they want to be. And that's great. And I understand, once I started to get that, I began to understand why this show means so much to so many people, why they're so super loyal and therefore super critical too.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, I'll do a very quick summation just in case people, if there is anyone like me who's like, what on earth is One Piece? It's this fantastical world with pirates and this young guy who wants to become a pirate, Luffy, and he's assembling a crew looking for this mythical, perhaps mythical treasure called the One Piece. And like you say, it's got action, adventure, high seas, but at its core, this beautiful friendship that grows between this crew. You touched on the bum clenching aspect of it. Just take me through, because I've heard you talk about the hope you feel when you first receive a new script and it's sitting there on your desk and you're looking at the cover, and the hope you feel as you turn that page and the story that is going to be revealed within. What was that experience for you reading the script for the opening episode of season 1 of One Piece?
All the same. All the same. You read a script and you think, yeah, you know, post-apocalyptic nuclear war. Yeah, the world's going to pop. Yeah, you know, let's go and move to another planet. Yeah, okay. And then this one comes along and you turn the page and you have the same kind of hope and you think, oh, okay. Yeah, this, you know, oh, okay. Okay, yeah. And then you turn the page and you can think, oh, right, you know, that's nice. That's and then you get to the end of it and you think, I've just been taken on a huge journey. I've got characters that got rubber abilities to stretch all over the place, and limbs that go all over the place, and a character that cuts himself up into hundreds of different pieces, which is ridiculous, you know, and action sequences that are mind-blowingly ambitious in landscapes and worlds that are very different. But I also feel like I've really got to know these characters, and that there are moments within it that are so small and are so intimate and so insightful about what it is to be a human being, and insightful about our world. And it's very rare that you get scripts that make you feel like you've expanded into a world, but also that you've been brought back to something really human. And I guess, you know, as a character and story man, that is something that I've become really interested in. And then, of course, the big question is right, so how do we do this?
I bet.
You know,
and I bet that question is quite a big question when you walk onto these truly. I watched the behind the scenes featurette. These truly spectacular sets, and I mean, look, to bring it down to basics, the money that has been spent on creating this world for these characters to exist in, and when you sort of look around that set, does it ever feel like, wow, this is a high pressure gig, or is it just a big sandbox for you to play in?
Well, it's really exciting. I mean, you know, all I can say is thank God I'm doing it, having had the experience in my life of having done all the other shows that I've done, and that this isn't my first gig. Because if it was my first gig, I don't think I would go to the toilet, or I'd either go to the toilet loads and loads and loads all the time, or I wouldn't go at all because you'd just get so bunged up. You know, but having done all those other big shows, and I think it was a combination of having done, you know, some big Marvel episodes for Daredevil, The Punisher, and Luke Cage, and then the big sword fights that I was doing with Henry Cavill, and then coming in with very little prep time to shoot the finale, which was huge for The Witcher, an enormous piece of work to draw all that together, and through that, having built a very strong, trusting relationship with Netflix, that I felt like I could genuinely be excited. I'd shot on those ships before because I did a series called Black Sails with Toby Stevens. So I kind of knew them. And look, I can't say I didn't wake up in the middle of the night every now and then and just think, what the fuck? Did I say that? Can I say that?
Yeah.
Or just think, this could go very badly wrong.
I mean, it hasn't. It hasn't. Because, I mean, look, these huge IPs with streamers, it doesn't always work out. You have these wonderful, wonderful IPs. And, I'm sorry. And
I've been on some of those, mate. Jupiter's Legacy, Mark Miller, great friend of mine, who lives just close to me here, Mark, Kick-Ass, The Kingsman, he is behind some of the biggest, best, interesting, wonderful, eclectic kind of cinema that we've seen, and it's his show, Jupiter's Legacy. It didn't work.
Yeah,
it didn't work.
It's that weird thing. I invested a whole season in that, so I watched the whole thing, and I can't tell you how disappointing it is when you reach the end and it's like, and that's it. That's your lot. It's so crushing for fans of a show, and I was enjoying it.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. I thought, I don't know whether you remember a show called Invincible. It was an animated show over on Amazon that was on at the same time, and I think there was too much shared DNA, and Invincible was a slightly more extreme version, so I think it suffered.
And The Boys.
And of course, The Boys as well, yeah.
And I think, interesting for me, there were elements of The Boys, I'd look at The Boys and there were elements of that I felt like we needed to bring in to Jupiter's Legacy. And, I did the episode 7 and episode 8, and it was a tricky time because they released SDK, Stephen DeKnight, who is the showrunner, when I came in. So there was a lot of reshaping of things that we needed to do. I love Stephen DeKnight. I think he's fantastic. He set up Daredevil. And also having just come off The Witcher, which was obviously kind of a really difficult show for me to come into because we needed to find a form for it that kind of really bring it alive. And so coming on to Jupiter's Legacy, where I felt like Stephen DeKnight is the leader of this, and then coming into it and really, really realizing that actually somehow something was not going right on that too. But they are difficult to do. They're really difficult. It's wrong to blame people for these sort of things. It's a miracle anything's any good in the film business, really. I mean, there's so many different people involved, and they're somehow trying to, swing everybody around to a singular vision, and everybody else has got their own ideas, and they are really difficult to do. And I think, when I came onto One Piece, I had enough experience of seeing what could go wrong to be able to sit down with the studio and to sit down with Netflix and say, okay, listen, here's my experience. This is what I see from my point of view as the guy who's trying to deliver it on the floor. And this is what we need in order to make it work. And if you trust me and you're behind me and the production team, obviously, then give us this and we'll make you something fab. Don't hedge,
Yeah. You go all in, for want of a better expression. I mean, to talk about your experience. Obviously, you've got over 20 years experience directing, from working, directing EastEnders and Casualty here, and then obviously gravitating over to, I think, I think Hannibal was your first big prestige US show. And you mentioned the term of showrunner there, which is it's a weird term that we're not as au fait with in the UK. It's a big thing in the US. But from your experience working as a director in the UK, when you first arrived on Hannibal, is the job of a director the same on these big prestige US TV shows as it is in the UK?
No, it isn't. And I was happy for that to be the case initially, because I wanted to learn the ropes, and at the end of the day, we're craftsmen, and you got to learn your craft, and you learn your craft in the UK and in the European market, and you learn that way of operating within the system. And then when you go over to America, you need to kind of work out how the system operates there. And Hannibal is such a big show, and it was such a interesting thing for me because I was shooting The Musketeers over in Prague for the BBC, and I got a phone call from my agents in London saying there were some agents in America who had seen my work and wanted to represent me. And I chatted with them, and they said, "Yeah, we love your work. Let's get together." And I said, "Well, do you not think we should meet before we kind of get married?" and and they said, "Well, okay." So once I'd finished Musketeers, I booked a flight, a bucket flight. I got a bus from Cirencester to Heathrow Airport, and on the bus I got a text from my old mate Steve Lightfoot, who's a fantastic producer who I'd done several films for in the UK, Criminal Justice and Sorted and even Casualty, actually. And he went over to the States and kind of, was making it big there. And he'd become joint showrunner with Brian Fuller on Hannibal. Anyway, he texted me on the bus as I was going to Heathrow saying, would you be interested in shooting an episode of Hannibal? And I honestly didn't know what the television series was, but I said, yes. So I got on the flight. And then as I was getting on the flight, this text came through saying, Brian might need to meet you when you get into Los Angeles before, you get the big tick. So I said, that's cool, no problem. So I got onto the plane, wedged up, for like 16 hours into Los Angeles. And I get off the plane, quite nervous because, I'd been in the British market, which is quite small, and there's 4 channels really, and then I get to Los Angeles and as I land, there's a text coming in saying, Brian's seen your work. He's happy. He wants you to fly out to Toronto. Can you go tomorrow? So I said, well, could I just meet my agents first, these new agents first, please? And then maybe just take a day's worth of meetings because that's why I'm here. And then come out. And they said, yeah, okay, cool. That's not a problem. So I met with the agents. I was staying in some little Airbnb in Los Angeles. And then the next thing I know is this big black limousine coming to pick me up. And I'm going into an aircraft first class. And I'd never been in a black limousine or in an aeroplane first class before. I mean, it was insane. I kind of, I felt like the imposter. Like, what do I do? Can I have a free glass of wine? How much do you want for that? So I landed in Toronto and picked up by another blooming car and taking this enormous apartment. And then started to work on the show, which is very, very dark. As Brian said to me, look, it's kind of it's operatic horror porn.
Yeah, one of the few shows that gave me nightmares as an adult. It's a really
did it?
Oh yeah, I loved it, but there were moments where I actually had to stop and just take a moment. It's that intense as a show.
Well, imagine trying to catch up on 2 series worth of the stuff, and then listening to all that classical music, and I would have to do Friends every now and then, or watch. This is my crazy kind of confession. I'd watch kind of little X Factor auditions that would kind of make me cry because they were so beautiful. That I go back to Hannibal. It's kind of, and then walking onto set with Mads Mikkelsen and with Lawrence Fishburne, that makes the palms of your hands sweat a little.
I bet.
But you go back to the work always. What's the story? Who are the characters, and what do they want? And you go back to all those traditions that you learn in theatre, which is, okay, where are we going with this story? What's the story about? What do you want?
You touched on The Witcher, and obviously that incredible sword fight you shot between Geralt and Renfrey. And I think the end of the first episode, this wonderful single shot sword fight, and I love it. And I mean, obviously, I imagine it helps having someone as committed as Henry Cavill when it comes to shooting something like that in one shot. A guy who goes, "I will train, I will do the work, I will do the rehearsal. I have to be in that shot."
Yes, and actually, it was partly because of how he moves and how he can fold a choreography, and he is such a skilled swordsman himself that partly inspired the thought of doing it as a single shot. When I sat down with Wolfie Stegeman, who's the stunt choreographer, that with Wade Eastwood, Wade works a lot with Tom Cruise. Henry had done Mission Impossible with Tom, and there was very much a sense that we were bringing that team in to choreograph this huge, important fight. But there are these single shot fight sequences, because I did one also on the Daredevil, its finest, the big stairwell fight, and I'm all for doing single shots, but I do think you need to understand why you're doing it. That it's not just something which is cool to do, although it is. But I'm a story and character man. There has to be story and character for the reason that you're doing it. And with that sword fight on The Witcher, it's a big fight. He meets this gang of thugs, and then he goes and he meets Renfrey. And that whole thing is one big fight, really. So as a director, you sit down and you say, well, what's the main event here? Renfrey. So somehow I've got to emphasize what the fight is with Renfrey and be free to be able to shoot and cut however I want to do that. Which means the first section of that fight, I have to think carefully about how I shoot it. What do I need to achieve for the audience? It's the pilot. And for those who don't know The Witcher, they're getting to know him. So if we were to do that first sequence with those 9 stuntmen, the thugs, in a single shot, what you're saying to the audience is, don't fuck with this guy. He's dangerous. He knows what he's doing.
Yep.
And then second of all, by the time I then get to the second part of that fight, which is the main event, which is with Renfrey, then I can control it with cuts. And what I wanted to do in that fight sequence with Renfrey is to say, just to stop it from time to time, so that they were looking at each other, and it was a real sense of, are they going to kiss or are they going to kill? All the time, playing that big moment, and then poof, you stop, and they eye each other like two snakes. What's going to happen? If I'd made that first section full of cuts, by the time you get to that, you're already a little tired as an audience. So there was some real proper thinking about it. And what we did is we brought in Steph, who's this kind of brilliant camera operator, to work with the stunt team for 3 weeks, non-stop, simply dedicated to that stunt team, to learn the choreography of the fight so that he could dance with it too. And so Henry could be completely confident that everybody knew what they were doing and he could just go to it. And those swords aren't sharp, but they are heavy. So if you get it wrong, it's going to hurt.
Wow. I think we might talk a little bit more about The Witcher as we go on our journey, because now, Marc, it is time to leave this reality and enter a dimension of pure film. You are our guide. We are your audience. Let's go on a trip to the movies. So we push open our doors to the temple of film and find ourselves in the foyer. There's an excited buzz, as there always is in a cinema foyer, the hum of anticipation. It's your perfect cinema trip, Marc. Who have you picked, living or dead, to go with you?
Oh, well, part of me wants to take my kids because they're so rude and honest about my work, about everything. But I love it. I absolutely love it, but I am in awe of the Coen brothers, and to be able to sit to watch a movie with them and to have the possibility of hearing them talk about it, or to be able to ask questions about it, and to be able to kind of share some popcorn with them and say, can you just tell me about, when you did Fargo? I just would love that opportunity. And I reckon they're such cinephiles. I reckon they would be incredible guests to be with.
What was there?
And they might bring Fran McDormand as well, because Fran McDormand is just such a goddess of an actor, and she's so brutal like my kids.
Yep.
That she would, she'd say it as it is, and I reckon I just listen.
Yeah. I mean, so what was? Do you remember your entry into the world of the Coens? The first time you experienced a Coen Brothers movie, and sort of that epiphany, I guess, of going, wow.
Was it The Big Lebowski? I don't know whether it was Raising Arizona, I think, was their very first, wasn't it? Film. Was that their very first film? I think it was. Yeah. Raising Arizona was such a individual film, and I remember Tom Richardson, who's a great mate of mine, who I set up a theatre company with, called the Three Monkeys Theatre Company with Tom. I remember him telling me about it all those years ago and watching it and thinking, yeah, this is interesting. This is a real voice here. You know, it was quite simple. And there's a wonderful podcast that Roger Deakins does, you know, the cinematographer Roger Deakins. And he does a brilliant interview with the Coen brothers. And they talk about Raising Arizona and how nobody really wanted to make it. And then made them a kind of a shoestring and a wing and a prayer and pulling in favors and all this kind of stuff. And it was a success. And from then on, they said, well, we are just going to make the films that we want to make and how we want to make them. And they've never changed that.
Yeah.
From Raising Arizona, they muscled it out. They came up with something that was really wonderful and idiosyncratic and individual. And so they said, well, why should we just dance to somebody else's tunes just because they got the money? Let's rather make it with less money, but make our thing. And look at their work. Look at their body of work. It's just,
it's incredible.
So special.
It's why I guess why they're one of the most unique voices on the cinema landscape. Why each film just feels like a very special.
Yeah, and not everyone is a success.
No.
I don't know whether you think that.
No. I agree. You know, a lot of people sort of. I think they're one of those directors that people become so devoted to that they can no longer see the wood for the trees, to put it mildly. And I very much sort of go, no, it's good because it's the Coens. And I think you've got masterpieces like Fargo, like No Country for Old Men, but there are others. That I did like Hail Caesar, their recent one, which I don't think a lot of people love, but that was great.
No, but they're always interesting to watch. You know, like Burn After Reading, I think is a kind of is an incredible piece of work. Tonally to get that tone right, and tone's really interesting for One Piece because to get the tone of One Piece right has been a huge conversation between me and the writers and the producers. But tonally they're always really interesting. If you think about, Burn After Reading, Brad Pitt's performance in that is worth watching because, that man is a giant of an actor, actually. He does Seven. He does those incredible, serious films. But, when you watch him in Burn After Reading, he trod the line of just being a bit kind of over the top.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He walked that tightrope. And every time you thought, it's going to go too much, he never does. He never does. It's beautiful to watch. And then Richard Jenkins, who I worked with recently on Berlin Station, who for me is just like one of cinema's greatest actors. I did a shot with him and he was wearing these thick glasses with his character. And I was intending to shoot it on a 3/4 back profile because I didn't want to see everything. But when I was watching his rehearsal, even behind those thick glasses, there was so much going on. I said to the guys, bring the camera around, mate. That's where the shot is.
Lovely stuff. So, Mark, it's you and the Coen brothers going to the cinema. So there's a clock on the wall in the foyer. It reads a specific time. What time of day have we gone to the cinema?
I'm an evening man. I mean, if I'm going to the cinema on my own, I'll tend to go during the daytime. But with guests, I would go for the evening. I love the event of it. I love that sense of, should we go out for a meal first? Have a meal, have a beer, chat about the movie, about all the stuff, that goes beforehand. And then it's dark when you come out and then you go into the cinema and all the lights are there. I love the event of it. Maybe it's the theatre in me, but, the daytime just feels, yeah, I've done that. Yeah. What's next? Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's go to Morrison's, whatever it is. The event of the evening. And then afterwards you say, we've got time for a quick pint. Oh yeah. Let's go and have a quick pint. I love that.
Yeah. And then you dissect the movie and you chat about it and you argue about it. Yeah. It's wonderful. And the evening is famously a busier screening for a movie. So do you enjoy that communal atmosphere, the idea of sharing the experience with loads of other people?
That's part of why the evening, because it tends to be busier. I love, it's the hum of the theatre, isn't it? When you're sitting and it's full and everybody is focused on the one thing, and you're sitting next to each other, you're not sitting opposite each other, so you can say all kinds of things that you perhaps wouldn't when you're sitting opposite each other. And there's that kind of expectation, and there's the da 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 da. Oh no, there isn't anymore, is there?
The famous Pearl and Dean music. Yeah.
Da 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 da. And it's kind of like when, and you can feel, and then the lights dim, and everything goes quiet.
Oh yeah,
it's magical, isn't it?
It is, and I do think there's something fascinating. I guess I understood focus groups and screening movies early for a test audience. Sorry, is what I'm looking for, the words I'm striving for, because I often watch them in press screenings where there's a scattering of journalists, but to watch it with a crowd, you begin to understand what people find funny, and because often it's like the infectious laughter of other people, and you're learning and you're understanding, and which is why they do these test audiences where they understand what people find entertaining, what people are scared by, what people find funny, the beats of a scene in a movie, which you don't get when you're just watching it on your own or with people in the industry.
No, and do you find when you're watching it with people in the industry, do you sense the mood from the other critics?
Oh yes. It's quite easy sometimes because they'll walk out and go, "Well, that was bollocks," or something like that.
Will they always watch it to the end?
Yes, yeah. I think there's a respect. I certainly believe that you can't say you've seen a movie unless you've watched it till the credits.
Yeah.
I would never walk out.
Well, that's good to hear.
A movie, yeah, absolutely. You touched on the tone of One Piece a moment ago. I just want to go back to it because it's to someone coming to this new. It is absolutely full of surprises. It's cut through with this surrealism that I just wasn't expecting at all. Coming to it as a new boy, the whole feel of some of the jokes and the performances is just so offbeat in such a fascinating way.
And the trick is to somehow still make that feel grounded, because if you go too far in that kind of whimsy and quirky, then it becomes dangerously silly and light. And if you go too far down the darkness, because there's plenty of darkness in that show too, then you end up losing, the joy of it and the fun of it and the playfulness of it, And so to me, one of the things that I felt we really need to do in translating it to a two-dimensional world, which is just pencil drawings on a piece of paper with characters that you can do anything with. You can make them do anything because it's just a drawing. When you then translate it into live action, fundamentally, you've got to dimensionalize those characters. You've got to give them some truth. You've got to give them some emotional backstory and a history that they carry into the world. And that's so important, because otherwise you're just trying to replicate two-dimensional characters with warm-blooded human beings. And that's why I think a lot of translations and adaptations from the anime into live action haven't worked for me when I looked at them, when I was asked to kind of come and direct this show. What is it that works and what is it that doesn't work? And and then of course you still have to kind of reference the manga, and so that's why I got these really special lenses made for the show. They've never been used before.
Wow.
Built for us by Vantage in Germany. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but somehow we had to both honor and reference the framing of the manga with this foot that comes into the foreground of the frame, this big long body behind it, or the eye that comes in, and still you see the location. But make it grounded in the world of warm-blooded human beings playing the part, and then to cast actors who and this was part of the big search, cast actors who have heart, who have warmth and charm, who can, for me, because of the way that I like to shoot action, and particularly the way that I wanted to shoot the action in One Piece, who were physical, fit, and who could carry a choreography, because I do these big, long, fluid action sequences in One Piece. So it was a big ask, but, you know, tonally, those are the things that we had to deliver. Ground it somehow, but still allow the whimsy and the madness.
I don't know, I don't want to, I might be wrong, but I saw a little bit of shared DNA with the Witcher fight we were talking about, and there's a wonderful fight in episode 2 that you directed between Strauss's pirate crew and some, I guess we'll call them even worse pirates, but it's
that's right. Yeah.
that's so much
that
fun.
That big long old boy shot.
Yeah. It's great. All right, you have booked the tickets for our cinema trip, Mark. Where in the auditorium are we going to be sitting?
Well, you know, one of the things that, you know, having worked in television mostly, one of the things that I love most about going to the cinema is sound. I love the fact that, you know, those sounds that you can bring out that you just can't do in television, because, I mean, you're beginning to be able to do it much more because we're now beginning to dub for, you know, big television screens. But it's still, you still don't know what kind of a sound system the audience has got to their screen. So what usually happens is the dub, when the executives come in and say, "Oh, there's too much space in there, you'll never be able to do it, bring it back up again," and all the rest of it, you know. But in the movies, you get it, you know, you get this sound. So I want to be centre back. I want to be in the centre of that. I don't want to be high up in the circle, or whatever it's called, stalls.
Yeah, the circle,
if it is
the balcony level.
Yeah,
yeah, I know what you mean.
I want to be down in the centre of it. I want to have sound all around me. I want to feel my chair vibrate. You know, in fact, there was a time when I was working on a First World War film called The Silence, which was all about the underground war, where in the First World War, where there was, I think it was 7,000 miles of tunnels, and there were 200,000 men under the ground fighting. And there's an incredible story about one man called William Hackett, who's the only guy who got a Victoria Cross, of the miners that were recruited to dig these tunnels. And the film was called The Silence because the Germans were digging tunnels too. And when they were underground, they'd have these kind of little pots that they'd put against the side of the tunnel to hear if there was somebody else digging around them. And they could very often hear the Germans digging a tunnel next door to them, right next door to them. And as soon as if they could hear them, they knew they were safe, because they obviously weren't going to blow with them in the tunnels. But as soon as it went silent, get the fuck out of there, because they're about to blow.
Oh my God.
So at one stage when we were working on this script, on this film, we were talking with Dolby to say, is there a way that we could put sound into chairs individually in certain cinemas so that you could literally have the sound of the digging around them, and then on one side suddenly take it out so it'd be silent, so you could really experience the claustrophobia and the madness of what was going on in those tunnels, you know. But sound is so important to cinema, and it's just not something you can do in the same way in television. You can't have the shared space of a movie theatre with all that sound. You can put on cans on your television, but you're just watching it on your own, and you're not connected to the people who might be in the room with you. But in the movies, you're all hearing it, and it's special.
Yeah, and there are mistakes that I never really considered that until you mentioned it. The idea of, you don't know what system someone has at home, so you're making decisions, audio decisions and visual decisions on the set. I just remember the furore that was created about the Battle for Winterfell episode of Game of Thrones, where, you know, basically they'd shot it in a certain way, and whatever they were using, it looked spectacular. But everyone at home on their TVs, they could barely see what was going on.
Yeah. And you know, I've had a young producer come in to a grade, when you're grading with a you know, coloring. Coming in, you know, you usually work in very darkened rooms with that. So you can really see the screen and see the light and see the color. And I've had a young producer come in and throw open the curtains, throw open the doors, turn on the lights and say, now start grading. Because that's how they're going to watch it. And you think, what? Where's the art?
Yeah.
We're not just making stuff for people to watch. This is elevate yourself. Please be better than that. You don't just give people what they want. We're there to extend what people, to maybe even stretch their idea of what can be done. That's our job as filmmakers.
Yeah. Right, we need to leave the foyer, Mark. One more thing, though, before we start our walk towards the auditorium. Oh, the air is full of wonderful smells. All manner of snacks and foodstuffs are available at the various counters. What are you choosing to eat?
Not tempted, mate.
Nothing.
No. I'll have something, but I don't want all that kind of hot dog nonsense. That's just going to make me sick in the stomach. And all I'll do then is thinking about, oh my God, oh God, that mustard, that was such a huge mistake. I'm going to be taking a packet of Maltesers, a packet of minstrels. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a big box of, is it Butterkiss popcorn?
Well, Butterkiss popcorn comes in the pre-sealed bags. Do you want the actual cinema popcorn that comes in the tubs?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In the tubs.
Yeah, got you. Yeah. Sweet or salted? Or a mix?
Sweet.
Okay.
Mix. I'll have a mix. I'll take a mix. Yeah. And then I'll have a bottle of fizzy water.
Oh, I thought you meant a bottle of fizz then. A bottle of champagne.
No, I'll have a bottle of fizzy water. I have been known to take a bottle of beer, sneak a bottle of beer in my pocket. But I would take a bottle of fizzy water, because all that sugar, you've got to kind of have something to wash it down, haven't you?
Yep.
Yeah. It's the antithesis of what I do when I'm shooting on set. Where I don't take any sugar at all. When I go and watch a movie, I want minstrels on one side, Maltesers on the other, popcorn in my lap, bottle of fizzy by my feet. Fizzy
Love
water.
it.
That's it.
Love it. Great order. Maltesers, minstrels, popcorn, sweet and salted, and fizzy water. Let's leave the foyer and walk down the corridor towards the auditorium. Now, the corridor's looking a little bare at the moment, so I'm going to put up posters as we go down that depicts your most important movie memories. And the first poster I'm putting up depicts, Mark, your fondest movie memory.
Well, Alex, when I was 6, I had to go to boarding school for a little time. And we were in this boarding school in Cornwall, at a place called Foy. And it's called Parr. And it was a very, tricky time. I was, obviously didn't quite know what's going on and didn't really know very many people there. My brother and sister were there. And we were told as a treat one weekend that we were going to go and watch The Sound of Music. Now, because of my family upbringing, I thought that was going to be, a trip through African bongos and wooden flutes and some old geezer singing, unknowable words with a zither or something like that, because, my dad used to have records of African bird songs and records of the mbira, somebody playing the mbira on a ranch in Africa, endlessly, we'd have that on in the house, and, they would take me to go and see the Cossack dancers at the Royal Albert Hall or the Whirling Dervishes. And, so I was thinking, I don't want to sit through an hour and a half of, that. But anyway, and I asked to not go, in actual fact. But they insisted because they didn't have anybody back at the house that we were living in, the school, to look after me. So we all trooped off to this cinema, and it's The Sound of Music that we all know and love. And I fell in love. Julie Andrews. I fell in love with Julie Andrews. I remember buying the album, and on the back of the album was a picture of Julie Andrews, and I used to kiss it. I used to kiss her. And so it couldn't. It was partly. I don't even know whether I actually really loved it, but it was not some geezer playing a wooden flute in the dusty African bush. It was Julie Andrews in this beautiful story of the family who were trying to escape Nazism. So it's that would be probably my fondest memory. I mean, I have lots of fond memories about going to the movies. You know, Saturday Night Fever. You know, when I was underage, I think I was 14 when it came out, and desperate to go and see it. My brother was going, and was it an 18 or something?
Do you know what? It could have been, actually. I mean, there's some. It wasn't what I expected when I first watched it, because I thought, oh, this is going to be some sort of fun and funky disco like thing. Like, I think I knew John Travolta from Grease at that point. I was like, Saturday Night Fever is going to be
No,
the
it's the
same.
other way around. Saturday Night Fever came out first and then Grease. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. But either way, when I first got round to watching Saturday Night Fever, oh my God, I didn't expect that guy to fall off the bridge, for example. That came out.
No, fall off the bridge or get a blowjob in the back of a car.
Right. Yeah, it's a grown-up movie.
It is a grown-up. Anyway, I remember putting on these massive, great platform shoes so that I could. You know, my brother really didn't want to take me. He was 18, and I think I was 16, probably something like that. You know, and there was these two-tone shoes with green and red and yellow that I was wearing at the time. Horrible things, you know, big wedgy platform shoes, and then going to that and feeling like this is a proper grown-up film, and I'm, you know, I felt really grown up, and you know, as you say, you just think of it as a kind of white guy doing disco dances, but it's a really good film, actually.
It's a great film,
and it's a bit like Slumdog Millionaire. You know, Slumdog Millionaire has been marketed as this kind of, you know, with brilliantly marketed with that big dance sequence on the train station at the end of it, but it's really about child abuse. You know? And Saturday Night Fever is about, you know, coming of age. It's about a proper adult coming of age story, you know. So that's another very vivid.
We've got a quandary here then. It's which poster are we putting up though? Saturday Night Fever. I've only got space for one.
Sound of Music. No, I know. Put the Sound of Music. It's got to be the Sound of Music.
All right. The first poster we're putting up is The Sound of Music. The second movie poster we're putting up as we continue down the corridor depicts your worst movie memory.
My worst movie memory. I always get something out of watching movies. So even if I'm not enjoying the film, I always get something out of it. But what comes to mind is there's a film called The Constant Gardener, which is a really good film with Rachel Weisz and Ralph Fiennes. And I remember we wanted to go and see it, me and my wife. My wife was pregnant with our first child, and the only seats that were available were in the front row of the cinema.
Okay.
So we were kind of like this, you know, and trying to take it all in like this, you know. And I don't know if you remember it well enough, but it's quite long lens. It's shot on quite a long lens, and it's very handheld. So there's a lot of movement with the lens. It's a very vital film. It's very visceral. You know, you're really in there with them, which is great if you're further back. But, you know, because we were kind of doing this the whole time like this, you know, and I was sort of having to go every now and then, you know, like this, and then go back up again like this, you know. And my wife, who was in the early stages of pregnant, was kind of nauseous anyway. So she was going like this. And the next thing I knew that she was starting to vomit.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So, you know, it's about the only time I think I've ever walked out of the cinema, but I was grabbing her and yanking her out of the cinema so that she could get to the bathrooms quick enough to be able to evacuate her stomach.
Yep. Okay.
Not all over the beautiful red carpet of the cinema.
Right. Well, that certainly constitutes our worst movie memory. We're putting up a poster for The Constant Gardener with a little caveat that it's not about the movie, it's about the seating and the vomit.
It really is.
Right.
Yes.
Our third movie poster, as we continue down the corridor, depicts the last performance, Mark, that brought you to tears.
Oh, I just cry so easily, Alex. I mean, it would probably be an advert that I would have seen
or
prior
an
before
X
movies, and
Factor audition, one of the X Factor
or an
auditions.
X Factor. Oh God, they get me every time. Yeah, but honestly, probably of a contemporary movie, it would be the ending of the Quiet Girl,
Hmm.
which is a really simple film, um, and the moment when she's delivered, I don't know if you've seen the film, but
I haven't seen the
she
film.
no, well, it's really about the story about this family who've got nothing, and it's fractious family life, and they have to give their daughter away to a couple who don't have a child. We don't really know why, but they obviously did, or they tried, or something, and they look after her. And for the first time in her life, she's sort of given attention. And at the end of the film, she's kind of given back to the family. And the girl has had such an experience of love and unconditional attention, um, that she's ambivalent about that. She wants to go back to her family, to her mum and dad, but these new couple have sort of become her surrogate mum and dad. And as the man who was looking after her drops her off and drives away, there's this lovely shot of the girl just kind of watching him drive away, and she looks to her real mum and dad, and then she just literally runs down this lane to her surrogate father, who's closing the gate, and he sees her, and he runs towards her, and they hug. And because Tom, who shot the film, did it so simply, and because it's the quiet girl, she doesn't say very much in the movie. That hug, it's what cinema does so well, Alex. It creates a moment, and the whole film is about that moment, really. It creates a moment that allows you to pour your own feelings into it. And I found that very deeply moving. Yeah. I also watched, sorry, do you want to say
No,
that?
no. I think you're about to mention what I was going to mention, so I'll let you continue.
Well, I also watched Kess recently.
Yeah.
Again, because I have to watch that film pretty well every year, I think, because it reminds me so much of my time up in Newcastle when I was there. It wasn't shot in Newcastle, but it was Barnsley. But there's something about that film which is kind of so brilliant and special, and the performance is so extraordinary. There's the moment when he discovers that his bird has been killed by his brother, and it's just one moment where he falls onto the sofa and buries his head in his pillow. But again, it's what cinema does so brilliantly. If you set it up right, you're the boy on the pillow on that sofa.
Yeah, I was researching that this morning and reminding myself I haven't watched Kes for years and years. I watched it as a kid, and it's just heartbreaking. And I remember, I think I watched Kes and Ring of Bright Water, where famously,
yes, what a film!
I think I must have watched the two in the same weekend for some horrible reason. Because I mean, wonderful films, but both these animals, these beautiful animals that you spent this relationship growing between the owner and the pet, and to see that, honestly, I still struggle with it. I think it was those two movies that formed this experience where if an animal dies in film, I find it the most powerful aspect of cinema,
Yeah,
like in terms of getting an emotional reaction from me.
yeah, it is, and and we have it's partly because they don't speak,
Mm.
and so in the relationship that the kind of human being has with the animal, it's not a negotiated relationship or a transactional relationship. It's purely about feeling and about love. And so, and with the story of Billy in Kess, who it's the only thing he can communicate with. It's the only thing he has some truth with. It's the only thing he has some love, dares to love, because, and then the other scene, of course, in Kess is the caning scene. I don't know if you remember that, when the boys are, they're trying to get rid of their cigarettes, and so they hand it to this little kid and say, "You put them in your pocket because you're just a little kid." And then, of course, they all get brought in by this headmaster who does this brilliant performance saying what kind of rubbish people they are, and they never listen, and oh, the younger generation are just rubbish, and you probably got cigarettes in your pockets, empty your pockets. And this little boy's going, oh my God, I'm going to get caught. And so he says, he tries to say, excuse me, sir, what? Empty your pocket, and then he empties his pockets, and then of course they find the cigarettes on him, and then he pulls out this cane and he cleans them. And these are such urchins. All these boys are such urchins that the pain, the performances Ken Loach gets from these boys is just incredible. And then it comes to the little boy, and when the headmaster rounds on the little boy, his eyes are just welling up with these huge big tears. And I mean, I defy anybody to not blubber that particular moment.
Oh, right then. What shall we put up? The poster for The Quiet Girl or a poster for Kes?
Kes.
All right then. There it goes. 1969.
You talked me around.
1960. I didn't mean to lean on you, but yeah, I kind of want the poster for Kes to go up. Let's put the poster for Kes up. All right, our final poster then, Mark, before we leave the corridor and enter the auditorium, depicts your unpopular movie opinion.
You're taking me to dangerous territory here, Mr. Singh.
Okay.
My dangerous opinion is that I was really disappointed with Top Gun Maverick.
Wow. Okay. So this is 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, $1.5 billion at the box office. The movie that Steven Spielberg said saved cinema, but you were disappointed by it.
Well, all that is true. I think it did save cinema, and it brought people back into the cinema, and all that is true. The action sequences are incredible. This is just me as a storyteller, and it's not a bad film. There's nothing wrong with it. I went to go and see it with my son in a big cinema with big sound, and I wanted that big full experience, and I got all of that, and he came away feeling very satisfied. But for me, I felt it was a real missed opportunity. I felt, and this is why I probably wouldn't ever get asked to shoot a Top Gun reboot. I just felt like the gift that Tom Cruise. I would love Tom Cruise to bequeath a different gift through that film. I know it saves cinema and that's really worthwhile, but he's a 60-something-year-old man, and his lover, Jennifer Colley, is, equally old. And I would have loved to have made a big blockbuster movie like that somehow celebrates that it's okay to be on that side of life and not pretend that you're 20. And it felt like, Tom Cruise is so extraordinary. He's so fit. He's so well kept. He's not got a grey hair in his head and all the rest of it. But I suppose I just felt like, wouldn't it have been great to have made a blockbuster movie in which the 60-year-old was a 60-year-old and he wasn't playing volleyball on the beach in the setting sun, and equal to all the 20-something-year-olds on the beach there. That somehow he was handing over to the next generation, and that actually the film was really about the generosity, the wisdom, the truth, which is that we, when you get older, have to start handing things back to the new generation to say, this is what I try and do as a filmmaker, is to try and help young filmmakers to kind of gain something of what I have maybe learned over the years that I've been doing stuff. And wouldn't it have been great if he had handed it over to Miles Teller, and somehow said, here's the baton, I've had my run, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to how to teach you do this well. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to teach you. And so I came away from that film thinking, I would love to have seen that kind of a film, because it's a message to the world to say there are great benefits of getting older. You don't have to pretend to be 20. And that's why, that's my view.
Solid reasoning. Yeah. I mean, there is a thing about Actors not handing over the baton, despite people expecting it to happen. I mean, you look at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the indie movie, where it was all sort of, it seemed to be set up to go. And here, Shia LaBeouf, take it and run with it. I'm out now. But no, that wasn't the case, as it seems. And obviously, we just had an Indy 5.
Yeah, exactly. And we won't get an Indy 6, I doubt, very much. It's a wonderful franchise. And so then you're going to have to kind of, twist yourself into all kinds of different shapes to try and keep that, IP alive. But I just feel like, and it's a Hollywood thing, and I don't know, it might be a star thing. I don't know Tom Cruise, but it might be that, he wouldn't have wanted to do the film if it was what the case it was. But I just felt like, such a big franchise to have set the scene to say, this is who I am now. I am this age. And I've had my time and I've fought my battles and I still have a heart. Look at Val Kilmer in the film, and now it's your turn and be bloody good at it. And I'm going to be tough on you, but be good at it,
I love it. I love it, Mark. I'm putting up a poster for Top Gun Maverick as your unpopular movie opinion that you did not think it delivered what it could have delivered. We've arrived at the last set of doors. We're going to push them open and walk into the auditorium. You and the Coen brothers are going to take your seats in the center towards the back. Now, we're going to play a few things on the screen. The first thing we're going to play on the screen before we get to the movie you've picked for us is the trailer for the film you're most looking forward to seeing at the cinema.
Wonka.
The Timothée Chalamet Wonka origin story, directed by the wonderful Paul King. Okay, great. Why are you looking forward to that?
Oh, because I loved the trailer. I just thought the trailer was a hoot, and I thought Timothée Chalamet's got just the right energy to take this thing off. And he has a bit of an energy like Iñaki Godoy on One Piece for Luffy as well. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel pushed. Like the Johnny Depp one, it just felt a little bit forced to me. But Timothée Chalamet, I just thought was like, wow, this is just going to be a romp. Paul King's such a great director for those kinds of films, and Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa. What's not to like about that? My God, did you see the trailer? Like Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa. I loved it.
Yeah, what a button! What a button on that trailer! You're swept up in all the majesty, and it starts to swell towards the end, and you're becoming emotional, and then bang, in a jar, Hugh Grant Oompa Loompa. Fantastic!
Great trailer.
Wonka, it is. We'll play the trailer for Wonka right then. Now we're going to next play on the big screen the movie moment that makes you literally or metaphorically pump your fist in the air.
Yeah, well, I literally did do this, actually. In fact, not just me, but almost the entire audience. I was shooting a drama, my very first live action kind of proper job in Wales and in Cardiff, and I'd had a really shitty day. It just hadn't kind of worked. And Moulin Rouge had just come out, the Baz Luhrmann version with Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor. And so I thought, look, I'm not going to work this evening. I just need to kind of clear things out of my head. I'm going to go and see Moulin Rouge. And it was a single screen cinema. It had just come out and it was rammed, absolutely rammed. And I was in the centre back on my own. And Roxanne came out. That tango, that dance, Roxanne, and first, what does he say? Something like, first there it is, then there's suspicion, betrayal, or whatever it's like that. And then it goes into this kind of tango, and the audience just literally rose up and said, yes! And it was this moment in cinema where you feel like this is what cinema's about. This is, whatever you think about the whole movie, this moment, this is cinema. And it was, I'll never forget that moment.
And again, it goes back to what you were saying about the action scenes you've directed. It's all very well having a musical number, but if it doesn't tell the story, doesn't move the story on, if where you arrive at the end of that musical number isn't different to where you started, then what was the point in having it? And that, I think you'll agree, it does it perfectly.
Yes, and also he intercuts it with the story between Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor, and between the Prince and all this sort of stuff. You know, it's so sexy, and it's so dangerous, and it's just like, and it's lit beautifully, and it's shot brilliantly, and it's cut immaculately, and it has all that kind of, all the best of Baz Luhrmann in it for me. You know, sometimes you know, Baz doesn't quite hit it, but those moments were just like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that wonderful moment where his female dance partner, the guy who's like, first there is passion, as you said, and she acts like he's actually hurt her, and you're like, oh my God, is he out of control? And then you realize she's so into the song that she's performing that moment. It really is special.
Yeah, well, it's the real tango. It is the tango, which is, you know, the sexual tension between, you know, you talk about the Renfrey fight in The Witcher, you know, the kill or kiss. It's the same kind of thing. The tango is about that, you know, isn't it? You know, it's really kill or kiss, you know, betrayal or passion, you know, or, you know, all those anger and all those sort of different emotions that were there. And, you know, I was just in Seville recently, and, you know, watching a big flamenco dance there, and it's the same kind of thing. You know, it has so much kind of like, you want me, you come and get me, and then fuck off. You know, it's like, wow. Yeah.
All right, lovely. We're playing the musical number that is Roxanne from Moulin Rouge. Right, next we're going to play, Mark, what you consider cinema's most shocking moment.
Well, you know, what's cinema's most shocking moment? Oh, God, I wouldn't be so presumptuous as to kind of pull one out. But for me, the most shocking moment for me is, you know, talking about my love of the Coen brothers, and I've got them there with me.
Yep.
Josh Brolin's death in No Country of Old Men doesn't even take place on screen.
Right. What a decision.
I mean, what a decision. You know, excuse me. You know, and it's brilliant for that. It's so shocking.
It really is that it's so real as well. It's this idea, because, you know, we are built in, or it's certainly my generation is built in to go, and there's the big shootout, the fight between, you know, our, in inverted commas, hero versus the bad guys. Not for it to just happen off screen, and just the discovery of like his body, like just lying prone there on the ground.
You don't even really see his face. You see the shirt, which is very identifiable because you've seen him go past the swimming pool. But I just spent, like, you know, almost 2/3 of the film following this man, interested in how he's going to get away with this, what's going to happen. And then you don't even give me the satisfaction of seeing him go. You give me more satisfaction by not showing me the satisfaction of seeing him go. And that's just genius, guys. Do you know that is? Have you any idea how clever that is? Well, they do. Of course they do, because it's the Coen brothers, you know.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. It's shocking. It's awe-inspiring, and it's like brave beyond belief. And it's the reason why, you know, it's the reasons why film, television needs to sometimes give over to the artists, because you won't get those moments if it was a studio film with the executive saying, "Well, where's the shot of Brolin getting killed? What do you mean you haven't got it? You haven't got it? Well, go get it." You know, that's what it'll be. Where's his face? I want to see his face. You know, and you get that from independent filmmakers who just say, you know, this is how I'm going to do it. Maybe that would be the great thing that'll come out of the strike.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, you could argue that what with the recent event movies, the $200 million plus movies, having struggled to make their money back, you know, we might be at the crest of the wave where superheroes go the way of the Western, and, you know, we start getting original ideas back on screen, you know, smaller $60 million blockbusters. Well,
even less, I would say, you know, as you know, even $60 million, you know, that's a lot of money to gather together. You know, you know, as a director, you know, really in feature films, you know, anything below $15 million, you can still keep some kind of creative control over. Once you start getting above that, you start to get interference. You know, it's you need bigger money involved, maybe 20 million, you know, but you know, that sort of level. And also, you know, look what's happening at the moment. You know, some truly independent films are still getting made, and maybe that's you know, if these people can't come to an agreement, maybe it'll be the rebirth of the independent movie. You know, hopefully it could be the case.
That would be very exciting. If independent cinema started getting slightly bigger budgets than they're getting at the moment, then yeah, that would it would certainly change the
Yeah,
landscape. Just to go back
yeah.
to your moment from No Country for Old Men, only because you've mentioned the power of cinema in terms of just the gesture speaking volumes. You don't need any dialogue. The bit where Tommy Lee Jones walks towards Kelly MacDonald and he's seen the body, he doesn't tell her he's dead. He just literally takes his hat off and just holds it against him. Doesn't say anything. And
Oh,
from
oh.
that, and she just breaks down. Wow.
And I did a series with Tim Roth, called Tin Star,
Yeah.
and we had a big scene in that where, you know, he's trying to come off the alcohol. He's been an alcoholic and he's an addict. He's trying to come off it, and we had this scene, and it was you know, quite a long scene on the page, and Tim, who is an extraordinary actor, cinema actor actually, said, "Oh, fuck that! I'm not doing all that." You know, this is what I'm going to do, right? You know, I know what they want. They want me to kind of sit in the chair, and the music will come, and then look at the bottle. He's bought himself a bottle of whiskey. Should I drink the bottle of whiskey? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be a good boy. You start the engine up. Look at it again. You say, "I know that's what they want." Fuck that! I'm not doing that. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in the car, sit in the chair. I'm going to see the brown paper bag with the bottle of whiskey, and I'm going to rip the paper back off. I'm going to take a drink, and I'm going to drive off. That's what I'm going to do. And it was brilliant because actually it had so much truth to it. You know, within that single shot, really, it had everything. You didn't need to do anything else. He understood the character. He played the character, and you know, that's cinema acting. That is understanding the language of film. You know, how you tell a story in film. You know, we'll come to my movie, the movie that I want to show you so badly. You know, look at, if you know, those, understanding the language of film, you know, has become so reductive at the moment, and there's a danger in television that, you know, you end up kind of just hoovering shots and making it all in the cutting room, and that's not how to make a film. To make a film, you need to understand what happens when you put shots next to each other, or when you withhold certain moments in order to deliver a moment at the end of it. And that's what we do as directors. That's our job, is to understand the language of film and to restrain and deliver at the right moment, not just, and the cut, you know, the close up. You know, you don't just randomly say, "Oh, what should we cut to now? Oh, let's cut to that." You know, why? And that's what that moment is. That's what the Coen brothers understand, you know, more than most, I think.
We are so close to announcing the movie that you are playing for us tonight. Just two more little bits to do. First of all, through the Dolby Atmos speakers, we are going to play the line of dialogue from movies that most affected you.
I don't know whether this is a cliche or not, but anyway, in Good Will Hunting, the much loved, lost, missed Robin Williams, the psychiatrist, is talking to Matt Damon, who is, you know, basically saying, you know, it's over, I'm out, you know, done, thanks so much, you know, whatever. And Robin Williams says to him, "It's not your fault."
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, because he keeps repeating it, doesn't he? Because
It's not your fault. And Matt Damon says, "Yeah, no, I know it's not my fault. It's fine. Yeah." And Robin Williams just says, "It's not your fault." And he says, "Yeah, no, I know that." And Robin Williams just says, "It's not your fault," you know. And gradually it sinks into this Matt Damon character who's so armored from all his experience as a child, and he lets it down. And talk about a weekly moment. I feel like I'm going to cry now talking about it. You know.
Yeah, I rewatched it this morning, and I was crying over breakfast because it's such an amazing scene.
Yeah, it's just an exceptional. They're both of them incredible in that scene, and you know, the truthfulness of the storytelling in it, and the beauty of Matt Damon's performance, holding that together to get to that point as an actor, and Robin Williams with because at that moment, you bring all of what you know about Robin Williams, this man, this giant of humanity, to that moment where he just wants to hold this guy, but he has to let him come to him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That release when he finally reaches for him and hugs him is just like, you just feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it in your body
Yeah.
when you watch him. Okay, the penultimate thing, Mark, before we get to the movie, not the penultimate, the final thing before we get to the movie is, what do you think is the best use of music in a film?
Oh God, this is so difficult because music is my passion. I'm musically trained. It means so much to me, and I could say, Dario Marianelli's unbelievably beautiful and beautifully played theme music for Pride and Prejudice. Joe Wright's Pride and Prejudice, so that delicate piano that where you can hear the keyboards. It's a beautiful piece of music, and so I could say that's brilliant use because Joe was trying to do something very kind of visceral with Pride and Prejudice, make it a bit dirty and a bit more real and all the rest of it. And then this music comes into it where you can hear the keyboards. It just worked. It fit. It was great. Trent. Atticus Finch and Trent Reznor. I just love their scores so much.
Yes.
I just think that if you listen to their scores, they're so varied. They're so they use so many eclectic different music instruments. Like when I was working with Brian Retzel on Hannibal, it's all these different things, and Brian would compose live. He'd watch the film and he had all these instruments laid out, and as he's watching the film, he's grabbing things and recording it all and doing it live. And you feel like Trent Reznor and Atticus Finch have got a similar kind of thing. And then you listen to their music for something like Gone Girl, which is very controlled film, David Fincher film, and their score creates this sense of menace all the time.
Yeah.
If you take that music out, it's a good film, but it's could be a little bland. Put the music in, and suddenly it's like, whoa, there is another whole story going on here that isn't in front of me, which I think is really clever. I love Johan Johansson. If you think about the much missed Johan Johansson, who wrote the score for Arrival.
Wow.
That kind of bass that comes through again, which I saw that in the cinema, and talking about sound, and he did it for Sicario as well, just a brilliant composer. Or Dickon Hinchcliffe, who again, another amazing composer who did Fairness and Lost Daughter, and again you can hear the playing of the instrument on it, which I love so much in soundtracks. Can I have them all? Can we listen to a bit of them all? Why don't we just listen to them all?
Do you know what? You described each so wonderfully that I'm going to put them all together. We're going to do a medley of all of those into one.
Don't layer them all on the same track, though. Just kind of separate the tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we know what we're doing. We've got great technicians in the booth. It's going to sound epic. And here we are. Mark, we have arrived. It is now time to announce to yourself and the Coens in this auditorium the movie out of all others you have picked to screen for us tonight. Mark, what are we watching?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh, a classic, no doubt. Why? Why have you picked Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
That's why. It's a movie. I was always a big sucker for the kind of buddy movies. I love those buddy movies. I was thinking about Thunderbolt and Lightfoot was another one that I thought about. Another brilliant film with Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges that I absolutely love. But Butch Cassidy and Sundance, look, I've got a poster of that in my house. Butch Cassidy and Sundance. My dad was a cowboy, and I spent some of my life being a cowboy myself. Ranching in Africa and ranching in Colorado, and breaking in bulls to earn my pocket money for my dad, and dehorning and castrating and branding on the ranch and all that. And so that sort of life is sort of in my life, my experience. And Dad, and we were allowed when I was a kid to watch The Virginian as a family show when Mum would cook chips and fish and chips on Friday night. The Virginian went out on Friday night, and you could barely see the television for smoke because all the chips, were smoking and. And anyway, through that. And then, of course, we moved on to Alias Smith and Jones with Pete Dewell and Ben Murphy, two of the most wanted criminals in the world, but they never shot anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Hannibal Hayes and Kid Curry, wasn't it? Yeah. But Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is such a rambling film. There's no real plot, particularly. It's a running away film. The entire film, they're kind of running away. And it's funny. It's so funny. They are so funny. And the construction of it by George Roy it's brilliant. That very first the opening sequence when you see the titles coming up, and there's this little kind of movie, like a found footage kind of movie stuff going on, and then it goes into this big close up of Paul Newman with his beautiful face and his blue eyes, and you just look at that and you're already in, and then you go to the shot of Robert Redford sitting at the table, playing cards, and it just holds and it holds and it holds on him. You never see a wide shot. Then Newman comes into it, and then you go back up, and it's still holding on that same shot. And the landscape is evocative, and the humor. I can't swim. That wonderful moment where they're trying to get away, and they're on a cliff, and there's water down there, and Newman says, Carl, let's just kind of jump. We'll jump into the water. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to get shot. He said, and Sundance Kid, says, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to fight it all out, And then you discover that he's scared because he can't swim. And then at the end of the film, you have that moment where Paul Newman says, I've never shot anybody, And it's so character driven. And just going back to where we started this conversation, I'm a character and story man. It's all about character. And then you have Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head with the beautiful Catherine Ross, who I fell in love with. She was in this white dress. I mean, who's not going to fall in love with her? And the genius idea to do that sequence, which is so brilliantly played by Paul Newman and Catherine Ross, that dynamism that sets the whole film up with this kind of weird song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, that somehow is bold and brave, and again, it's authored, but really delivers the final tragic moment, which comes at you when you see it for the first time, as an unbelievable, maybe that's my most shocking piece of cinema, really. I remember seeing it, just not waiting for it to the next beat, because I couldn't believe that's where the film was going to end.
I was exactly the same. I watched it when I was very young, and I will say I didn't understand the nuance of William Goldman's script, the death of the Old West, which now when you watch that opening sequence with Paul Newman standing in front of the bank going, well, I like the old bank. Where's the old bank gone? So they've got this new secure bank, and the West. I didn't understand.
It's a high price to pay for art, he said.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't understand any of that, but it did work for me. It worked for me because this super posse always in the distance that was chasing them. You never really saw this posse. They were just this
on
thing
bicycles
on the horizon, and and then the banter. I remember loving it as a kid, and like you said, finding it funny. But to bring us back to what you were just talking about, as a child, I refused to accept that the two people who I'd followed this movie were going to die. I was like, well, they didn't show it. I was trying to explain it to my mum. I was like, they didn't show it because they didn't actually die. They somehow beat the Bolivian army, because it was one of the first films where the heroes who I'd followed on this journey actually died.
I mean, I've got the Coen brothers either side of me. I want to say, what do you think, guys? I want to know what you think about this from No Country for Old Men, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Let's talk. Because it's brave. It's talk about Josh Brolin, being off camera, and it freeze frames and it goes back into sepia, and it's like unforgettable and miserable. because you love these two guys so much, and their relationship, and their warmth, and their humor, and their care for each other, even though they're kind of, bitching about each other. Wow, yeah, you never had a great idea in your head. You couldn't shoot anyway. At the very end there, and and also the landscape. It's so cinematic. It's so unlikely. It's such an illogical film. And actually, if you read William Goldman's book about it, it's really interesting because he says, nobody wanted to do it really because, this kind of long rambling thing which ends up in Bolivia. The studios just thought, well, I don't even know what this is. Why are we going to Bolivia? There's no plot really other than to escape,
Yeah.
And yet to me, it's magnificent. It's magnificent. It's joyous. It's celebratory. It's visceral. He sets up a point of view really brilliantly early on with the two of them. The humor with the kind of the shootout at the very top of the show. The raindrops keep falling on your head, which cements this sense of what this film is and how to watch it. And then the delivery at the end of that really shocking freeze frame that makes it. For me, it's the movie I want to show you, man.
It is the movie you have screened for us tonight, and that's it. Mark, the curtains are closing on your trip to the movies. The Coens are milling out alongside you, thanking you for taking them on this wonderful night at the cinema. But before you go, it is time for this week's mystery question as we ask, what's in the box? So I've got a box here. This is a question that has been sent to us, so I'm seeing it for the first time as well. Okay. So, hi, Mark. As a huge fan, see what you make of this. As a huge fan of The Witcher, can I ask if you think the show will survive Henry Cavill's departure? Mark, over to you.
Difficult question.
Yeah.
I was only involved in season 1. I haven't been involved in season 2 or season 3. I don't know where the minds of the showrunners and the writers are going with the show. I think Henry, obviously is, fully identified with Geralt and The Witcher as a character. He gave his all to it. But, Liam Hemsworth, who's taking over is equally physical and has an enormous presence too. And I think that, what's the choice? You close the show down and you say, that's it, 3 seasons and done and out. Or you say, let's see if we can give it a go with someone else and see if it works. And fair play to Liam for taking up that mantle and giving it a go. Henry's an A-list actor. He's got a lot of stuff that he probably wants to do too, and he trains that man. Before you start shooting in the daytime, when you've wrapped at night, he'll go and train again at night time. He takes it all very seriously. He does all the stunts himself, even down to the very last close up of a hand. They're demanding shows to shoot. They take a long time. I hope it survives. I love the show, and I think, Liam's a great fit. But you, the person who asked the question, are the people who'll decide, not me.
That is very true. That is very true. Thank you for answering our mystery question, Mark. And that's it. You know what? Your taxi has arrived to ferry you back to reality. But before you go, let's recap your perfect night at the movies. You are going with the Coen brothers. In the evening, you are sitting at the center back and you are ordering Minstrel's Maltesers, sweet and salted popcorn, and a bottle of fizzy water. You are then going to put up a poster for your fondest movie memory, which was watching The Sound of Music and falling in love with Julie Andrews. Your worst movie memory depicts putting up a poster for The Constant Gardener with a little caveat that says it's not about the movie, it's about sitting at the front and the vomit situation that ensued from the motion on the screen. The third poster we're putting up in the corridor is the last performance that brought you to tears. Well, a mention to The Quiet Girl and the end of that, but we've gone with Kes and the end with the bird dying. Oh, I don't want to even talk about it in 1969, but we are putting up a poster for Kes. Your unpopular movie opinion, we're putting up a poster for Top Gun Maverick because it didn't deliver what you felt it could have delivered. Then we're into the auditorium. We're playing a trailer for Wonka, which you're very excited about. Timothée Chalamet bringing just the right amount of energy. The moment that makes you literally or metaphorically, but in your case, literally pump your fist in the air is Baz Luhrmann's Roxanne sequence from Moulin Rouge. The most shocking moment in cinema. Gosh. Josh Brolin's death in No Country for Old Men off screen. The piece of dialogue that most affected you is "It's not your fault. It's not your fault" from Good Will Hunting. The best use of music in a movie, we've got a medley of Dario Marinelli from Pride and Prejudice, Trent Reznor and Atticus Finch, Gone Girl, Johan Johansson from Arrival, and Dickon Hinchcliffe are Out of the Furnace and The Lost Daughter. Before we play on the big screen, the classic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Mark, that was your trip to the movies. Have you had a good time?
Oh man, I'm in. Yeah, I've got to go and watch that movie now tonight for sure.
It's been a pleasure joining you on this trip. Thank you very much, Mark.
Alex, thanks, mate. I've really enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this interview. I'd love it if you would check out some of the other interviews on our channel. They're all fascinating and unique trips to the movies with some wonderful, wonderful guests. And if you would like to find out more, do hit us up on our social channels. We are at Trip to Movies Pod. That's at Trip to Movies Pod on all social media with lovely content on there. And you can get in touch with us if you so wish. Thanks again.